Hello everyone and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Finn's furious outburst, Poppy's worst mother ever. Luna Nozawa dubbed Poppy Nozawa the worst mother in the world after John Finn Finnegan lost his temper. This is how Wednesday's B&B episode unfolded. Hope Logan used a technical issue with Liam Spencer's laptop at the Cliff home as a pretext to visit and see how he was doing. In addition, Hope gave Liam Beth Spencer's drawing and urged him to tell his family about his diagnosis. Liam didn't want to be the center of attention, especially since Bill Spencer would do whatever it took to find experts. Hope still believed that Bill, Wyatt, and Will Spencer should be told the truth, but Liam wanted to concentrate on spending time with Hope, Steffy, Beth, and Kelly Spencer. Steffy Forrester recommended that she put her trust in Finn to deal with Luna after he had finished comforting everyone in the Forrester office. Ridge Forrester was still concerned about what would happen if Luna found out she couldn't date Finn. At Luna's apartment, she moaned about her miserable childhood and raged that Poppy was to blame for everything. Since they never established roots, Luna found it difficult to make friends and was constantly bouncing around. Luna made fun of the entire Nozawa Power slogan they used to recite after claiming that Poppy had been the worst mother in the world. Luna refused to allow Steffy to do the same to her after Poppy cheated her out of a relationship with Finn. Later, when Luna arrived to the Cliff house, Finn was surprised. Luna hoped that since Steffy wasn't around, they could talk openly and that Finn would be more receptive to integrating her into his life. Finn wasn't interested in bonding, despite Luna's attempts to persuade him that she needed her father. Finn drugged and kidnapped his own wife after exploding at Luna's murder of 2 people. Finn claimed that he could never date Luna because she may have killed caged Steffy in the building demolition. Luna objected, hoping he didn't mean it, but Finn claimed he did, and he told her not to go there ever again. Finn's degree of rage made it obvious exactly where he stood. John Finn Finnegan had always prided himself on being calm under pressure, a steady hand in surgery, a compassionate listener to his patients, and a loyal husband to Steffy Forrester. But all of that poise was gone the moment Luna Nozawa barged into the Cliff house, uninvited and full of trembling hope, believing that she could talk her way into his heart. It was the final act in a week filled with emotional tremors, revelations, and familial disintegration, and Finn had finally reached the edge of the emotional cliff he'd been teetering on since the moment he learned Luna was his half-sister. News dropped on him like a bomb from the past, shattering the image he'd built of who he was and what kind of family he had. Luna had stood in the doorway like a ghost from a dream he didn't remember having, her eyes watery and wide, her voice barely holding back desperation as she begged him to just listen, to hear her out, to not shut her down the way Steffy had, the way Ridge had warned him to do, the way his own instincts screamed at him to do. But Finn, exhausted from emotional battles and the never-ending tide of Forrester drama, snapped, his words laced with fury, betrayal, and a hurt that reached down to his core, ripping away any pretense of calm civility. "You think you can just walk in here and erase everything you've done? After what you did to Steffy, after you drugged her, kidnapped her, locked her in that condemned building where she almost died," he roared, his voice echoing off the pristine walls of the house that was meant to be a sanctuary, not a stage for family warfare. Luna's face crumpled at his words, but Finn wasn't finished. Years of quiet pain and the weight of Poppy's deceptions boiled over in a torrent that neither of them could stop. "You don't even see it, do you? You've been raised by a liar. Poppy Nozawa didn't just lie to you, she robbed me of a family I never got to know, robbed you of a father, and she did it all while hiding behind her so-called Nozawa power crap." "What power?" "The power to manipulate? To move you from school to school, town to town, so you never had a real home, a real life," he snapped, his voice cracking with the raw emotion of a man forced to confront the wreckage of his past. Luna tried to speak, to defend herself, but Finn cut her off, his hands shaking with barely restrained rage. "You were a child, Luna. She was the adult. And she failed you, over and over. You want to know who the worst mother in the world is? It's Poppy. It's your mother. The woman who made sure you'd never know who I was until it was too late to fix it. The woman who covered up your mistakes, who taught you that bending the truth is easier than facing it. You were doomed the minute she taught you that. And now? Now you want me to overlook the fact that you almost killed my wife? That you destroyed the fragile peace I had left with Steffi after months of trying to rebuild? I can't do that, Luna. I won't. Luna's tears fell freely then, and her hands clenched at her sides, but there was no sympathy left in Finn, only devastation, the ruins of what could have been, and the wreckage of a family he never asked for. You're not my sister, he said coldly. You're a stranger who brought chaos into my life and nearly took everything from me. I don't want a relationship. I don't want apologies. I want you gone. His voice dropped to a lethal whisper. And don't ever come back. Luna sobbed quietly, taking a shaky step back, but her pain didn't move him. For too long, Finn had swallowed his feelings, tried to be the adult in every room, the fixer, the forgiver. But not anymore. As she turned and walked out the door, closing it behind her with a soft click that seemed to echo like a gunshot, Finn leaned against the wall, breathing hard, staring out the window where the ocean crashed against the rocks below. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, its golden glow bathing the horizon in warmth that didn't reach him. He thought of Steffi, of her resilience, her fear, her voice calling out his name from beneath that crumbling ceiling as the building had nearly fallen on top of her. He thought of Beth and Kelly, of what they almost lost. And in that moment, his love for them flared like a shield, protecting him from the guilt Luna's visit might have otherwise brought. At the Forrester office, Ridge and Steffi were mid-conversation, Steffi pacing as Ridge tried to reassure her that Finn would do the right thing. I trust him, Steffi said, though her voice trembled. But I don't trust her. Luna's hurting, but that doesn't mean she can force her way into his life. Not after what she did. Ridge nodded solemnly. He knows that. He'll see through her. He's stronger than he thinks. And indeed, Finn was. Alone in the house, silence enveloping him like a cold blanket, Finn finally allowed himself to sit, his head in his hands, his thoughts racing. How had it come to this? A half-sister he never knew existed. A mother, Poppy, who'd kept secrets for decades. And now, Luna's bitter proclamation that Poppy was the worst mother in the world echoed in his ears like a verdict. She was right, in a way. Poppy was the worst. Not because she was cruel, but because she had disguised her cowardice as love, her fear as wisdom. She had never told him the truth because she was afraid of what it would mean. And now everyone was paying the price. Luna, desperate for connection, had inherited more than just her mother's lies, she'd inherited the consequences. And Finn? He had inherited the burden. The burden of knowing that no matter how hard he tried to build a perfect life, the past would always find a way in. Hope Logan, meanwhile, had watched it all from a distance. She had sensed something was wrong the moment she'd visited the Cliff House under the guise of a laptop fix. She had felt the tension in Finn's voice, seen the storm brewing behind his eyes. And now, she regretted not pushing harder to tell the Spencers the truth about Liam's condition, because now, in the face of this Nozawa implosion, she saw how fragile life could be. Family secrets, when buried too long, grew roots like weeds, choking out everything good. She clutched Beth's drawing to her chest and wondered if her own daughter would one day face ghosts of her own. At Luna's apartment, she sobbed into her pillow, her cries muffled by the cheap fabric of the couch that had become her sanctuary and her prison. You ruined everything, she whispered aloud, though whether it was meant for herself or Poppy, she didn't know. She had believed that Finn would understand. That somewhere, beneath the rage and betrayal, he would find compassion. But she had underestimated the depth of his love for Steffi, and the permanence of the damage she had done. Poppy, of course, was nowhere to be found. Ever the avoidant mother, she had vanished after Luna's last tirade, leaving her daughter to pick up the pieces alone. And maybe that was the final betrayal. Not the lies, not the false mantras, but the abandonment, emotional, physical, spiritual. Luna sat up and screamed into the empty room. You're the worst mother in the world, she shouted, the words burning her throat as they escaped. You were supposed to protect me. You were supposed to protect him. And somewhere, perhaps in another part of LA, Poppy Nozawa heard that echo, though she might never admit it. As Finn and Hayes bond, Luna sobs. As Hayes Finnegan and John Finn Finnegan became closer, Luna Nozawa sobbed. It was a sad moment for his rejected daughter because Dad's whole attention was focused on Luna's younger brother. When Luna realized she would never date Finn, Ridge Forrester of Forrester Creations feared that she would be driven over the brink. Ridge demanded that Steffy Forrester phone him or the police if Luna returned to the Cliff House. Taylor Hayes and Ridge both continued to worry about the potentially unpleasant news that was on the horizon. Bill Spencer stated he could have handled things improperly after Lee Finnegan called him in for a meeting and voiced his displeasure over Luna's freedom. Bill found it difficult to admit when he was mistaken, but he accepted all of his authority and appeared to realize that pulling strings wasn't always the proper thing to do. Lee thought that Luna would leave town after Bill updated her on his conversation with her and how he pushed her to do so. Finn reminded her at the Cliff home that Luna couldn't be in his life and asked her not to refer to him as Dad. On Thursday's B&B episode, Finn refused to back down despite Luna's protests. Luna scurried into the kitchen to hide when Hayes became agitated and ran out. Nevertheless, Luna managed to overhear Finn's affectionate exchange with Hayes, who was reassured that zombies weren't real despite his fear of them. In her adoring father mood, Luna sobbed over Finn and saw what might have been for her if she had known him sooner. Hayes went back to his room to retrieve his toys after Steffy got home. Luna talked about the lovely moment between Finn and her half-brother when she turned the corner. Steffy thought it was inappropriate for Luna to come over there again and opposed to her calling Hayes that. Finn pushed Luna to realize that they would never be together and made it apparent that she was not invited. Luna was compelled to leave when Steffy urged her to never return. After gazing at a picture of Steffy, Finn, and Hayes together, Luna became enraged and scowled at Steffy outdoors. The moment Luna Nozawa stood at the edge of the doorway to the Cliff House, she knew she didn't belong. She knew, deep down in the aching, hollowed-out places of her soul, that this world was never meant for her, not in the way it was for Hayes or even Steffy. The home was pristine, warm with the scent of lavender and luxury, a place where smiles came easy and laughter echoed off the marble floors. And yet, for Luna, it might as well have been a fortress of glass, transparent, visible, but utterly impenetrable. She watched as her father, John Finn Finnegan, the man whose blood ran through her veins but whose heart refused her name, knelt beside his son, Hayes, and comforted him with a patience and warmth Luna had never known. The sound of Finn's voice, soothing, full of conviction and fatherly love, struck Luna with the cruelest contrast. He had it in him. The tenderness. The protection. The gentleness. But he had chosen to withhold it from her. As Hayes tearfully clung to his father's shoulder, mumbling something about zombies in the closet, Finn reassured him with ease. "Zombies aren't real, buddy. I promise. You're safe. I'm right here." That was all Hayes needed, his dad's arms, his dad's words, his dad's presence. And that was everything Luna would never get. She ducked back into the kitchen, invisible, unheard, and yet feeling every syllable like a dagger to the chest. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, at least that's what she told herself. But it hurt too much to walk away. She had to know what she was missing. She had to see it, to prove to herself that it wasn't some illusion she had conjured up in the lonely corners of her imagination. Tears welled up in her eyes, silent and relentless, as the scene unfolded like a dream she'd never wake into. And then the laughter, Hayes giggled as Finn tickled him gently, then scooped him up into a warm embrace. Luna felt something inside her collapse. She clutched the edge of the granite counter to stay upright. Her knees had turned to water. This was the father she could have had. This was the love she would have basked in, had life not chosen to play such a cruel joke on her. It was too much. Too vivid. Too beautiful. Too heartbreaking. She could barely breathe. At Forrester Creations, Ridge Forrester paced the floor of his office like a lion in a cage. The lines around his eyes had deepened with worry, and the usually composed designer was visibly unraveling. Taylor Hayes sat on the edge of the sleek leather couch, her fingers twisting anxiously. "She's not stable, Ridge," she said quietly. "Luna, she's hurting." "And that kind of pain?" It doesn't just go away. Ridge nodded, his jaw tight with concern. I told Steffi, he said. If Luna comes back to that house, she needs to call me. Or the police. The words felt harsh, but necessary. Luna wasn't just a girl in mourning, she was a time bomb of emotion. Rejection by a father she only just found, betrayal by a family that shut her out, and a life that seemed to define her as an outsider no matter where she went. It was a volatile mix. We need to be ready, Taylor murmured. Bad news, it's coming. I can feel it. Ridge sighed and looked out the window. I just hope it's not already too late. Meanwhile, across town, Lee Finnegan was fuming. Her stern posture barely wavered as she addressed Bill Spencer, who had reluctantly come at her request. She's still in town, Lee snapped. After everything I told her. She's still here. Wandering around. Making trouble. Bill raised an eyebrow but remained calm. I didn't promise she'd leave, Lee, he said. I only talked to her. I told her, maybe this wasn't the place for her. But I didn't threaten her. That was growth, for Bill Spencer to admit he hadn't pulled strings or manipulated outcomes. But it didn't comfort Lee. She had spent her entire life building order, structure, and predictability. Luna represented chaos. A tear in the fabric she had woven so carefully. This girl, Lee hissed, is not like the rest of us. She doesn't follow the rules. She doesn't belong. Bill paused, folding his arms. Maybe she doesn't, he admitted. But pushing her out like this? That's not going to end well. Still, Lee wouldn't budge. I hope she leaves, she said with finality. For all our sakes. Back at the Cliff House, Luna finally found the courage, or maybe the desperation, to step into the room again. Hayes had gone back to his room to clean up his toys, and the laughter had faded into a soft hum of background happiness. Luna's voice trembled as she stepped forward. That was beautiful, she whispered. The way you comforted him. You're such a good dad. The words hung in the air like smoke. Steffi had just returned, her expression hardening the moment she saw Luna. What are you doing here? She snapped. You were told not to come back. Luna ignored her. She couldn't take her eyes off Finn. I saw you with Hayes. And I couldn't help but imagine, but Finn cut her off, his voice cool and resolute. Luna, he said, you can't be here. You can't keep doing this. I told you, I'm not your dad. Please, stop calling me that. The pain sliced through her like glass. Even now, after witnessing that side of him, the loving, paternal side, he still wouldn't offer her even a sliver of it. Steffi stepped forward, her posture like armor. Hayes is not your brother, she said sharply. Stop inserting yourself into our lives. Luna's face contorted with anguish. He is my brother, she insisted. By blood, at least. I'm not trying to take anything from you, I want to belong somewhere. Finn didn't speak. His silence was more devastating than any cruel word could have been. Steffi's tone turned icy. Leave, she commanded. Now. And don't come back. Luna's body moved, almost robotically, toward the door. But her heart remained behind, shattered and sprawled across the floor. She didn't say another word. She just walked out. Outside, the sunlight was too bright, the ocean too loud, the world too indifferent. Luna paused near the edge of the bluff, the breeze tangling through her hair. She pulled out her phone and stared at a photo, one she had taken months ago when she first found out about Finn. It was of the three of them, Steffi, Finn, and Hayes, smiling, wrapped in a perfect family hug. Luna stared at Steffi's face, her features full of confidence and possessiveness. She had everything Luna didn't. She had the life. The love. The acceptance. Luna's fingers curled tightly around the device, her breathing uneven. Her eyes narrowed as she glared at Steffi's frozen smile on the screen. It wasn't fair. None of it was. And for a moment, Luna wasn't crying anymore. She was fuming. A bitter seed had been planted, one that was watered by years of abandonment and rejection. She didn't know what she would do next, but one thing was certain, she couldn't just walk away. Not this time.